Hello, I am Anna Marie Fennell. I'm a pre-licensed psychotherapist with the Mental Health Coalition. And so this is the wrap up to our gratitude campaign. And today I'm joined with Erika de la Cruz, the editor-in-chief of LA Girl, and Dr. Ariana. Sorry, could you say your name for me, please?
Hoet.
Hoet, thank you. Clinical Director of On Our Sleeves, which is an MHC member organization. And I can allow them to introduce themselves further beyond that point.
You want me to jump in?
Sure, please.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So I'm Ariana. I'm a pediatric psychologist. I work with kids in a primary care clinic. So when families take their children to see their pediatrician, I help with any question they have. And I'm clinical director of On Our Sleeves, which is an organization that is all about giving free resources that help people understand children's mental health a little bit better, break stigmas, and build tools and strategies to promote and that children's mental health and wellness.
Love it. Excited to be here with you today. My name's Erika de la Cruz, and I have been a mental health advocate probably the last 10 years. So I have a couple best-selling books out in the personal development space. The most recent one is called Think Big, really teaching vulnerability and through it living and thinking, not even living, but thinking beyond your circumstances and cultivating your mental state of mind to be a companion and a loved one to you, almost eliminating that wrestling or trying to quiet it down and develop routines that allow you to become friends with all the cute little thoughts and machinery and the things that it tells you. So I'm a best-selling author. I own a media publication called The LA Girl. We are lifestyle, fashion, and entertainment. However, because I'm the owner, we also have Gratitude in the Parks for all of our readers monthly. They're sold out to practice gratitude on purpose to improve your mental state of mind. So I love all things personal wellness, personal development, and I've trained under, if anyone's familiar with Jim Rohn, Jim Rohn's 18-year business partner, who was the original sort of inspirational speaker, moving people through words to think better about their lives. I've trained under his business partner for the last 8 or 9 years. So you'll find my social media platforms filled with feel-good content or a take on mental health that involves empowerment. Cool, yeah, it's me.
It's lovely. Thank you both so much for joining. And it's lovely to hear about the kind of the niche that you both can offer to this discussion. Well, I guess without further ado, I can start it off. We have a couple like topics and questions prepared, so I can lead the questions, but of course, if there's anything that you have to add or anything else to contribute, feel free to hop in. The first question right off the bat is, what does gratitude mean to you? And I can start, but I think it'll be great for us to all share. I think gratitude for me is it's important to think about it as a practice, because I don't think it's something that innately is just like it can be really hard to access if you're not in the habit of doing so. And I think the more that you do it, the more it's kind of a mental muscle and it becomes easier over time. And yeah, I think it just means being able to embrace all that life has to offer rather than trying to like narrow your perspective into just the positive or just things that, it's more about embracing everything rather than like trying to funnel out the negativity of the world. Yeah. Ariana, would you like to hop in?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, gratitude, beyond, the being thankful for things in life, to me, it's it's a reminder to pause and slow down. We live in a society where we're constantly go, 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 right? We're thinking about what we need to do next, that next project and our to-do list. And gratitude to me is a reminder to stop and notice, almost like a mindfulness practice, right? Of what's going on in my life right now that I appreciate and care about and that I'm proud of and grateful for. So to me, exactly like you said, it's a practice, it's a habit to build on.
Love that. Yeah, to me, gratitude is it's a really special practice. I relate to gratitude in the sense of it goes beyond think good thoughts. Just try and think of a thought that's positive, which seems a little bit neutral. And a state of gratitude, I feel like it means it's a more active practice than just declaring good thoughts. When you're grateful, you actually have to cultivate a sensation within yourself, or try to, the best possible, that is really active. So you're cultivating the sensation that is acknowledging the good. And it's a really, really powerful tool, because whether, it's defined as successful on your first try or not, you're taking the time to intentionally acknowledge what's good, or even, like, my favorite is the future acknowledgement of what's good. Like, I'm so grateful that this day is here, that I'm going to have an XYZ day. It's more of a claiming for, that's how I relate to gratitude, is you're in your power because you're claiming and stating that you have a lot to be grateful for. You're even saying, I'm grateful that I'm alive, and all of that it brings. So it can leave someone with a lot more personal power than just starting out with, like, more neutral good thoughts, I guess I would say.
I love both of those. I agree totally with what you said, Ariana, about it really having a meditative aspect to it. And like you said, Erika, about it being a really active process. It's kind of funny how it could be both simultaneously, but I really believe both of those. Let's see. And so the next question is about how Thanksgiving was just like a few weeks ago. And it's a holiday where we're all asked to turn inward and reflect on what we're grateful for. But the question is, can this practice be helpful all year long? And I think absolutely. If either of you would like to maybe start at taking a stab at that question, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, it's the research shows that gratitude is beneficial to our mental health, but really it's the habit, right? Doing it one time around the Thanksgiving table, it feels good in that moment and it's great and it's an awesome way to connect with friends and family, but really it's taking it beyond that day. It's doing it every day, as we've been talking about already, of being purposeful and practicing it and making it part of our thinking patterns. That's where that impact comes in. And one thing that I like about the way that we practice gratitude and Thanksgiving that I wish we would extend it to every day is that we're not just reflecting on what we're grateful for, but we're telling other people, right? We take the practice of saying it out loud, and oftentimes we're grateful for other people in our lives and we're telling them. And we don't do that enough. And so not only is that gratitude practice helpful for you, but it's helpful for the person receiving it. And so I think taking that outside of Thanksgiving and doing it constantly is also something that I would absolutely recommend. And it's a part of gratitude too, is expressing it to others too.
Absolutely. I think the key word is habit. Habit. If your aim is physical health, pretty much the steps. It's going to be some combination of being a little bit more active and maybe tending to your diet. So if we're looking through a really nutritious state of mental health, it's going to mean changing those habits as well. And year-round practice, I always tell my readers or at events, I'm like, side effects may include defaulting to optimism more often, looking on the bright side more on a more automatic recurring basis. Gratitude, for me, it's like you can't practice being more grateful enough, because you're just training your physiological states to go in tandem with this intentional practice and err on the side of it more often, because our machinery is going to have us be in the state of fight or flight or reaction by default, because our mechanism is to keep us safe from harm. And it's like, if you want to play big, it'll keep you safe by putting in all these fears and doubts and sometimes negativity. But if you practice gratitude more often, you start building this psychological, the synapses in the brain will fire to create a routine. And instead of a reaction of fight or flight or meltdown for 10 minutes, maybe it's 1 minute, but you can access what your state of being has been practicing. And gosh, I think we should incorporate it into our routines. And I think, yeah, side effects may include feeling a little bit better more often, is what I'm always saying. So
that ties perfectly into the next question, which is, what is the science behind gratitude, and can it be helpful in changing negative thinking patterns? And I think you're totally spot on there, and that like it literally does help. It's like the same way that it's a habit, the same way you know, the more often you're able to kind of slow down and think about what you're grateful for, think about what brings you joy, the more often it'll be easier to just tap into that. And yeah, it's totally right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as humans, well, we know that our emotions tend to come from our thoughts and the way we perceive the world, right? If I'm constantly having thoughts that are negative about myself or others or my environment, I'm not going to feel very good. And so exactly like Erika's saying, we can fall into a cycle of having a negative perception frequently, and we can also fall into the cycle of having a positive perception, but it takes practice, and it takes practice changing it over. And that's why gratitude is a good habit and thing to do, because it helps, especially for people that may tend to have the tendency to have those pessimistic thoughts. And, you know, it helps with our self-esteem. It helps as a buffer to stress, you know, if a difficult life situation or stressful life situation is happening, but I'm in the habit of reframing and thinking differently, that's going to help. It won't make it go away, but it helps. And it helps our social relationships, as we were talking about earlier. So there's a lot of really important connections between gratitude and our mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the more often you're able to kind of think in that frame of mind, the more often, like if something challenging comes up, the more able you'll be able to, you know, rather than catastrophizing about something, you'll be able to provide like other examples of like, well, maybe it will work out, or maybe this is what's happening. And I think the more that you have that skill, the more you can also share it with others too. So if someone else comes to you and they're like freaking out, it's like, well, maybe it could be this, maybe it could be that. And so like you said, it's about like being able to ground yourself, but also connecting and being able to share the benefits of it with other people. Yeah. This next question is specifically for you, Erika, and it's, how have you seen the gratitude practices help folks in your network through your work with the LA Girl?
Yeah, the LA Girl, well, we have gratitude meetups monthly that I mentioned, and I've just seen moving results every single month, because habitually we don't, as a society, it's not ingrained in us from childhood to sit and, have you cultivated a positive state of being today, honey? I was never asked that growing up as a child. And for my own story and my own experience, when I really got disciplined and I focused my willpower on stopping, well, for me, it's once a day. I'm building the black belt, that bicep, the mental bicep, but at least once a week, once a month, pausing and cultivating those feelings on purpose. To me, gratitude is just a state of being. And from that state of being, you can take that momentum anywhere. And it's typically from a state of being, the action you're taking is more inspired. The thoughts you're thinking tend to be a little bit more elevated. And doing that on purpose really helped me. So what I've seen with the LA Girl meetups is that women are getting together just to meet more people in LA. And, they have choices from pottery classes to yoga, but this is an extra special hour where we just cultivate a sense of gratitude for the things in our lives. Sometimes we do future gratitude lists, being thankful for that which we know is on the way, having faith that better circumstances or anything happening now is all for our highest good. And I'm witnessing tears, a lot of release, because women who have never been exposed to even therapy or personal development practices whatsoever, all of a sudden show up to make some friends in LA, but are moved or hear things that release other emotions or other patterns of thought that they didn't realize that they were thinking, which means a lot. The other part is the accountability factor is so huge. I wish that I had like a personal trainer to remind me to feel good. And I feel part of my purpose on the planet is to inadvertently be that for a lot of people and provide resources and ways to remind people that they can pause, and intentionally with me, I will lead you through at least something where maybe you're not even in the mood, but you will get maybe a frequency higher from the state you were before. So I think the accountability has really helped, because what we're all seeing at the LA Girl is the same people. So it keeps growing because they make it a habit monthly, and they say, no one forces me to feel good on any sort of basis. Yeah, and the other thing I've seen is at the end of all the gratitude meetups, we always have an exercise of sharing with a minimum of a group of 4 or more. And we preface it with, you don't have to share, but with intention. You're here to be a victor, not a victim. We encourage you to use your vulnerability and share with a group of strangers. And that's been the biggest feedback, is that we don't really get to talk to anybody. It's hard to call someone on the phone or even much less book a therapy session. So even sharing in a really safe space for them, it just feels like a lot's released in the sessions. Yeah, I could cry. It's moving for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like another kind of sub theme throughout this discussion has been connection. And it's really wonderful how even just having like a monthly check-in like that makes such a huge impact on the people in your group. Yeah, that's lovely work that you're doing. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. I know, do you guys have like accountability? Do you have do you guys have habits you practice every week or day? Some
Erika,
sort of mindset?
I love that you said that accountability piece, because that comes up in therapy for me when I'm talking to my patients and my teens. I often tell them, like, I wish I could be there with you, right? I see you once a week or once every 2 weeks, and I wish I could be there with you every day to be like, hey, like, catch that moment where
Totally.
you can make a different thought or choice. And so the idea that you're creating a community where you're holding each other accountable in that positive way, I mean, that's amazing, because like you said, we're not used to that as a society. Someone that's like, hey, have you practiced gratitude today? What's your positive state of mind? And that reminder, I mean, that can make such a difference. So that's cool. That's so awesome that you're creating that community.
It's because we can't have you in our pocket every minute. So we need to get together and create something.
Yeah, I think in some ways, even just being able to check in with like each client on a weekly basis is helpful. And one of the things I think when I think about something that I do on a regular basis is like each Sunday I volunteer at the yoga studio that's in my neighborhood. And so it makes sure that I at least go once a week, and each time, like at the end of the practice, I'm able to check in with myself about how I feel in the given week. And like, regardless of what's going on in the week, I still can be grateful of like that moment of like peace and like the moment of kind of like release that I have after doing a practice, and being able to have that quiet moment to reflect at the end of it. That's something it's really interesting how like gratitude really does intersect a lot with like the spiritual practices, or it's kind of like
It does.
yeah, it's kind of like mindful element to it.
Yeah.
the next question is for Ariana, and it is, do you have any tips to help foster gratitude with kids? Like, are there any times where you might avoid suggesting gratitude to a child, like in a case of like they had a bad grade or if they're suffering from a loss? And when might be like the prime time to implement a gratitude practice? Sorry,
Yeah.
try going down my road.
There's definitely so many ways to teach kids gratitude, and I'd love to share some. And then definitely some times where it's best, and other times where we lean on other strategies. So for teaching gratitude, I would say, again, like we've said all along, it's making it a habit. Kids learn by watching us, kids learn by practicing with us. So if every day as a family, you sit down at the dinner table and everyone shares a thing that they're grateful for, similar to Thanksgiving, right? But this time we're doing it every night. And kids are going to know to expect it once it is a habit, once it is something you do every day. So it helps them go about their day knowing like this is coming. So I need to pay attention so that I can have that good thing to share tonight of what I'm grateful for. So again, it helps you with your state of mind, even not just when you're sharing it at dinner time, but through your whole day, because you're now on the lookout for this positive thing throughout your day that I'm going to share with my family. So doing it every day, having them know that it's coming, modeling it, doing it yourself so that they know what it looks like. And then at honoursleeves.org, we have some free downloads that you can go to right now that are for helping families. So we have like a gratitude journal, we have a gratitude jar activity. So we have different ways where you could do it just going around the table and sharing, but you could also have something where you write it down and it asks different, like the journal one asks things like, what are you grateful for in others, in yourself, in your environment? So it gets them thinking differently. So we definitely have those activities available. And to answer your question about, well, what happens when they're having a bad day, and is there a time where we shouldn't be teaching gratitude? And the answer is yes. You want to be doing it as a habit, but we don't want to use it as a coping tool during this bad moment, because we want to teach kids that all emotions are normal, and that if I'm feeling sad or angry, frustrated, nervous, that's okay. We don't want to dismiss that. We don't want to suppress the emotion by telling them to think of something good or, dismissing it could be worse, right? So we want to validate them in that moment. And I always like to give physical health examples to mental health examples, because to me, that's part of breaking the stigma, is for people to be able to see it equally. And for me, teaching gratitude is kind of like having kids eat their vegetables, right? We want them to eat their vegetables every day, and we're going to encourage that. But if your child is sick and they have a fever, you're not going to be like, here's some broccoli, right? You're going to respond with the medicine, the doctor's visit, whatever they need. And you're going to ask them to continue to eat healthy, because it is going to help, but it's not the only thing. So same thing with a practice like gratitude. Like, you don't want to stop it on a bad day. You want to keep doing it. And you want to do something different too to help with that. So think of it in that way, that it's a healthy habit, but sometimes we have to add something on if it's an extra bad situation or bad day that's going on.
Such a perfect analogy.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I love what you said about kind of tying it back to what we talked about with Thanksgiving, about how an easy way to make it a habit and to increase someone's awareness of it is to know that someone's going to ask you about it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of, as I was thinking about this earlier, that I really feel like the more you practice gratitude, the more it really does enhance your sense of awareness for the things that bring you joy day to day. It's kind of like if you're a painter and you start, noticing the details when you like create like a still life or something. Even when you're not painting, you'll go throughout the day and you'll notice like the textures or the way the light bounces off things. And it's like the more you practice gratitude, the more you notice even like the little things that you're grateful for. So that's really cool. I guess kind of tying in with that is if any of us have any suggestions for how to implement a consistent gratitude practice, like Ariana, you've already given a great example for families and children. Erika, do you have any go-tos, any favorite suggestions?
Yeah, it took a while to get me on the path of a sustainable practice that I practice all the time. For me, sometimes I hear the negative sides of a challenge, like a 1-week challenge or a 30-day challenge. But for me, I did challenge myself to 30 days of Monday through Friday morning routines. And I'm going there because I believe that everyone, you have that willpower and that conviction to put a little bit of time once a day into your routine. And it doesn't have to be forever, but if you batch it, then you start to feel the momentum of what it would be like to practice 5 days in a row or 10 days in a row. And you will naturally, in a low moment, or if you're experiencing some contrast to what you want to be experiencing, you will be able to access those consistent, consecutive days of practice that you practiced, because you'll remember the feelings afterward. And my recommendation is always, if you can go 3 weeks, if you can go 15 days, Monday through Friday, or if you skip one, it's enough time to be able to experience some sort of better feels, a frequency that's higher than neutral, I always say, and to commit that to memory. But it also allows you to have a sense of personal power that people always talk about going to the gym and they feel so good after in a lot of areas of their life, because it's really hard to get yourself to the gym, even though you want the results. It's really hard to implement a daily gratitude practice, or weekly or monthly. But I promise you, if you conjure up that 3-week worth of conviction to put that into your schedule, the results I found is that the people that we've been recommending this to, and what we get back is there's a heightened sense of self-esteem, personal power that you gain over just implementing the routine. And when I often get, what are ways to practice? Because people have heard of journaling. I always recommend within that journal, prompts are amazing. So if you can take the time to find some prompts, or I think Ariana was talking about a few, then you can free flow journal. And if free flow writing isn't your thing, a simple list, coffee, hubby, dog, car, walk. Gratitude lists are super powerful. I do them very often. Lists, I personally have a gratitude globe that I've had for years. And when the big, juicy moments that I'm grateful for happen, I put it on a note, roll it up, put it in the globe. I've had it for years. One day when it's full, I'll break it. But another part of this is I run into a lot of people who don't love writing, and that's why they love gratitude in the park, because we always start with a guided visualization, like a meditation, to get yourself into the space of gratitude, and then you can journal. What I hear is people love to be walked through that because it just requires your imagination. So I always recommend going back, bringing something to mind you're grateful for right now, and setting your timer for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 minutes, or 1. If you have 30 seconds, great, better than nothing. And just going into why it is you love that one thing. Your physiology very quickly calibrates to gratitude. And then for some people, they like to conjure up a moment in the past and really sit with that for 5 minutes and why they're so grateful for it. And my personal favorite is the future. Even if it's not in your reality yet, what do you want? What do you aim for? What would you, having all the things you deem to make you happy, what would that you feel like now? You don't even need the things, because you'd literally just bring them to mind, cultivate the feelings, and then you'd be working in reverse, where you don't need to wait for anything to feel good. I think that's what gratitude's about, is your state of being on purpose. So some of what I practice.
That's amazing. I'm seeing a question in here, and they're saying, well, what if a person thinks that it's overrated, they don't want to practice it? And Erika, your idea of doing it like 3 weeks at a time, right? And I'm thinking of, well, what if I have a teenager or a partner, a friend that's just like, absolutely not, I don't care, it's like this person said, it's overrated. And I'm thinking about something that I did to my husband, where I noticed that if I ask at the dinner table, how was your day? Again, as humans, at the end of the day, we're tired. We tend to go to the negative, right? Oh, I had this meeting or that, or we tend to go there. It's just human. So I started asking instead, what was the best part of your day, to start the conversation? And that's a way of practicing gratitude, right? I don't have to ask the word, or the question, what are you thankful for, right? Because it may shut some people down, as Paz is saying. But if I say, what was the best part of your day, or to a child, like, did you enjoy something today? Did you have fun today? Right? Asking open-ended questions that elicit that positive, that's helping someone practice gratitude. And being able to change the way we talk to each other and the way the questions we ask can help someone have like this 3-week intensive gratitude every night without even knowing it, right? And then you can reflect on that. Like, how has that felt, like having these conversations? So thinking about the open-ended questions we ask each other, it's a really good way to engage someone in that gratitude practice with us.
I love it. Yeah, and that's one thing I get all the time in my work is I'm big on affirmations as well. And it's like, that's cliche, or that's a little overrated, or that's cheesy. Because there's so little, sometimes you think of the quote above the bathroom toilet that says, think good thoughts, see good things. And I always pose that question, challenging back. We're not laughing at people who are on a treadmill. We're not laughing at people at the gym. And these are tangible ways that make you challenge that comfort zone. Because sometimes we're programmed to believe, I should have just been born, happy or optimistic or grateful. And in the thick of it, we should have been born with 6-packs, maybe. But the point is, if we're going to the gym to improve that state of physical health, these exercises, I always compare the two. They're no different to implement, except you feel a little cheesy because you're the 10% of the population doing it, not the 90%. And if you know people who are saying that they have results from these positive practices, maybe the rest of the world is laughing. The people practicing are getting something really great, and their quality and state of being advocates for them to be spreading it. So something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some questions in the chat, and I think there's some overlap, so maybe we can save those for the end. But I think one of my favorite questions in this lineup is, how can we manage feeling grateful and disappointed at the same time? And can you feel those two emotions at the same time? And I think that's what's so interesting and unique about gratitude, is that it's not like antithetical to any other emotion, really. I think in some ways, when you're truly grateful, you might even be grateful for the negative emotions that come up in your life, because they're like, having that gratitude is what allows you to appreciate the full spectrum of what life has to offer. And so I think, it might not make sense on the surface, but I think very much you can feel grateful and disappointed at the same time. I wonder if either of you have any additions to that idea of how to manage like gratitude and disappointment simultaneously.
Yeah, I would say that one thing I'm noticing as a therapist is that people often want to avoid negative emotions, or I try not to call them negative emotion. We'll talk in therapy as uncomfortable emotions, right? Like, we don't want to feel anxious. We don't want to feel angry or sad. And there's this need to want to make it stop or run away. And I often talk to the kids I work with that we're not robots. Like, I would actually worry if you weren't sad right now, right? Like there are situations in life that are going to cause these emotions, and that makes you human, and that's normal. And so really what we have to figure out is, how do I live with it? How do I move through this, right? Emotions are not permanent and they come and go. And so the reality is that yes, we can feel more than one emotion at a time. And sometimes they seem like competing emotions. Like, wait, how can I be, something I hear in the holidays a lot is, if I'm grieving for someone, how am I supposed to be expressing gratitude? And I hear sometimes people even say that they feel a little bit guilty for feeling grateful or joy or happy at a time when they should be sad. Um, but to me, that's just what makes us human, is that ability to say, I can feel both, and it doesn't cancel one or the other. There's also the opposite side of that I hear, which is people saying that they feel guilty because they're not grateful right now at a time when we are supposed to be so grateful and connected to others. And that's okay too. Like people go through some really difficult things in life, and sometimes it can be hard to connect to that gratitude or positive emotion. And being able to just give ourselves that space and validate our emotion is very important too.
I would love to mention, that's such a good point. At the beginning of every gratitude meetup, we acknowledge all of the thoughts that are we say in contrast. I like uncomfortable thoughts. It's just contrast to the emotions we want to be experiencing. Mm-hmm. Sadness, anger, disappointment, self-doubt, negativity. We open every meetup with closing our eyes and going through this visualization that I mentioned, acknowledging all of it before we choose to release it for just the session or in the moment. And we are all human. We're all going to go through it. And I relate to my emotions as my learning of self, and they inform me on what I care about, what I do want, something I experienced I didn't like. And I know that is the learning of where I am, and I stuffing it down, right? We always want to bring it up and acknowledge it so that it can transform, take shape in another way, be let go, or at least become aware of. And acknowledgement's that first step. And with that, I relate to that as, oh, I got to look at you. I got to acknowledge you. I got to figure out what this is pointing to and learn about me. And then the gratitude portion in my life has been the choice. I'm like, got it. My machinery is experiencing valid emotions. Who I am and what I'm experiencing is here. I know that I have choice, and it's huge willpower, free will. You can't choose it every time. You can learn to choose it more often. But I relate to the gratitude portion in the midst of disappointment as the choice. And sometimes you need to feel the disappointment and acknowledge it for however long you need to. Yeah, but it is there. And that's where I think I saw a question come in, and a very valid statement, that it is so hard to feel grateful if bad things have happened to you, or if you didn't grow up with that. And I just want to share that my whole world is about, I've literally guinea pigged myself. What would happen if I did do all the cliche, overrated practices? And I grew up with absolutely no sense of anyone telling me what gratitude is or how to practice it. And I went through a really, really tough time where my family lost everything. My mom voluntarily left to the homeless community where she still resides under an overpass. Everything was dismantled when I was 19 years old, and our items were sold to the state. And I was really depressed. I got into therapy. I started consuming personal development. I found a guy named Bob Proctor on YouTube, thank God. And I just started watching this positive thought process. And I'm like, no, you don't understand what's going on with my life though. But it was teaching me that there was a different way of thinking, and that it actually wasn't going to be natural. You may not have learned it, but it would require choice and an intention to be set to go there. And a family member of mine ended up buying my grandmother's urn that I was desperately looking for $3 at a swap meet because I learned all of our items had been sold to the state. And in that moment, that should have been a real low according to circumstances, because I was so involved and thinking about how I was going to react and who I was going to be in the world. I was just bawling. He assumed I was distraught, but I was so grateful that that family member would be going and looking for my stuff. And I was like, I'm actually the luckiest. I have nothing, but I have everything right here to declare that I'm going to be grateful. Then from that grateful space, my belief is that I created more to be grateful for. That's my manifestation practice. But I thought I'd share that because sometimes it's easy to watch people and be like, yeah, well, sure, you were probably some trust fund kid, but it's, there's real examples of going through hardship and getting to choose to be that victor versus that victim, even incrementally.
I think those are the ones that are the most like powerful stories in like defensive gratitude, are those ones where, someone is in this situation where it's like, well, how on earth would you have like a positive perspective? But through that practice, their default becomes something where they're able to be like tremendously grateful and tremendously, the weight of it almost doesn't hit you as much.
Totally. And 10% of that is just exposing yourself to the content. So I'm like, everyone here, I know who you are. Great. Congratulations. You're those people. Like that the access is often the biggest gap. And you've overcome that. I'm like really proud. I don't know you. Maybe I do. But...
Let's see. Okay, I think another really important question, especially as it relates to gratitude, is understanding the difference between gratitude and toxic positivity. And I think we've touched on it with like the idea of like, what someone would happen to their toilet in their bathroom. But like, but understanding like what is toxic positivity specifically and how does it differ from a gratitude practice, I think is a really important distinction to make.
Yeah, it's important. And I think we started seeing more of a conversation about toxic positivity around the pandemic, right? When there was a lot of difficult situations happening, and then you would see people trying to be like, just think positively, find the good in it, right? I love, Erika, that you start your meetups with first acknowledging the difficult, because the idea with toxic positivity is that you're dismissing or ignoring the negatives, whether it's the situation or the emotion. You're pushing it away and you're trying to just focus on the good. Or you have people telling you, well, someone else has it worse than you, or what look for the good in this situation. And to me, gratitude can be completely separate from that situation or emotion you're feeling, right? You can be going through something really hard and acknowledge that this is really hard and I have every right in the world to feel the way I'm feeling. And without having to find the good in that situation, it's not a but, it's an and, right? Like, this is awful and there are still other things that I can look for that I'm thankful for. And to me, it's almost like a lifesaver, right? And Erika, thank you for sharing your story. And that idea of, there's something really tough happening for me, but I'm going to look for that thing to cling on to that I'm grateful for. And even the fact that you looked for the future that you wanted to find, and the hope and the gratefulness there, right? To me, they're two things. We're not invalidating or pushing away the negative and telling the people to just be positive or think that others have it worse. We're saying yes, and what about the other good thing in your life?
Totally.
I think tying in with that, I think there's a really great question in the chat from Stephanie. It says, how do you bring up gratitude to others without being dismissive of their problems or invalidating their emotions? Yeah, I think that's great, because keeping in mind with that idea of not wanting to push away negative emotions and being able to make space for the pain, for the hurt. I think, how would you broach the idea of gratitude to someone that is experiencing some sort of difficulty?
I think for me, I first take the time to validate what they're going through right now, ask them what they need right now. Are they looking for you to listen, or are they looking for advice, right? So taking, again, like my example of the broccoli with the child earlier, like there is a moment to bring up gratitude, and maybe it's not that conversation, right? Maybe the person coming to you needs a different kind of support, and you want to continue to be there for people that need you. So continuing the conversation, coming back another day. And as that person has those conversations with you, then eventually maybe there is a place to say, hey, this may be helpful for you. And like we've talked about, building a habit, even the conversations, the way you ask questions, like, tell me about your day today, right? If someone's going through something hard, they're likely going to tell you about the difficult things, but asking them, how was your day? Tell me the best thing that happened. It can help them reframe. And so, and I've seen a lot of similar questions throughout of like, I've read hypermasculinity, people that don't want to talk about it. And so it's that same approach where you don't have to like go in head first of let's practice gratitude, fill this journal out, but it's more of how we talk with each other.
100%. I couldn't agree more with asking, are you looking for any practices or resources? And often I can intuitively sense when they just want to vent, or they just would like that bucket and space to be heard. So the first thing that I always go to is the listening portion, and really just hearing and recreating their experience for them. And for being so aligned in my life with gratitude and positivity, I think the piece that I find with it is not needing to bring it up as often as one might think, knowing me, to anyone. There is this piece that you can cultivate within you. It doesn't mean I don't bring it up, I do. However, I am less attached to the need to put it in other people's lives, because I am so aligned with, I am responsible for my experience. And I know it can be difficult sometimes to even like live with the person you might be thinking of, right? I have a very traditional Latino father who is like, what's gratitude? And it's sometimes difficult to interact, but through my own personal development practices, I can interact with him as perfectly just the way he is, without needing to even bring that into the space. Relationship dependent. Then my hubby will be complaining about something, and I'll be able to be like, honey, do you want to do like a list of what we're grateful for? I can broach that with him. So it's very interesting, but ultimately I've been disappointed with the person who wants to feel better. They're complaining, they have negative thoughts. And I think, oh my gosh, I have some great things that you could try. And there's a level of disappointment if they never do, right? They would maybe just never be interested in that. And it was, that was giving my state of being into the power or hands of whether someone tried something or not, when really I took back responsibility and realized, I can choose exactly how I feel. And if I want to spend more time with them, I'll choose them exactly as they are and for what they did. So relationship dependent. I hope that's a little helpful too.
Yeah.
No, it's super helpful being able to consider the kind of context, or like how close this relationship is to you, and being able to note that if someone's really, in the middle of something difficult, that bringing up gratitude out of the blue could feel very invalidating. A lot of the times, if someone really just needs to vent and someone gives them unsolicited advice, it's very annoying. But I think if you practice gratitude and approach that in your day-to-day life, then people might start to notice and be like, like, Erika, how are you so chill with this every day? Like, what do you
Absolutely.
do? Then, it's like, well, this is what I do. This is how I take care of myself mentally.
No, that's such a great point. Is the more that you work on you, you might just find that the questions about where to do it to are inbound eventually.
Yeah, and a lot of people have asked, like, how do I teach young children? And that's it, right? Like, beyond encouraging the daily practice as a family, model, live it yourself, because kids will do what you do.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, the final question that we have set up is, well, we only have one question left, so I think we can touch on that briefly and then try to answer as many questions that we have. Like I said, I think a lot of them kind of overlap, and it seems like you've both been keeping tabs on them as well. But the last question, without further ado, is what inspired you to start Gratitude in the Park in the first place, Erika?
Yeah, that is easy, a little bit more brief and simple. The original founder of the magazine I own did monthly hikes. She was a hiker. She loved to hike. So every Sunday, she herself was hiking and she could invite the readers to join her. I am an indoor girl, so I do different things on a Sunday. And one of our interns one semester was like, well, what would you do? What could we do a meetup around? I'm like, well, I wake up, I either meditate, recite affirmations, or do gratitude lists. So Gratitude in the Park became our new theme and meetup, and it was really easy because I was already doing it on Sundays. So yeah.
Lovely. Well, yeah, let's see. If either of you see a question in the chat that inspires you, feel free to take it. Let's see. I saw a couple questions about like a particular gratitude journal. Like Dr. Hoet has mentioned, like there are resources online, especially through On Your Sleeves, or you can always just like Google a journal prompt. That's a free resource. One journal that I like, it's very simple. It's called, I have it on my desk. I'm looking behind my laptop. It's called the 5-Minute Journal. And it's like, it basically has a page for every day. And it will ask you a question of like, what are 3 things you're grateful for? What are 3 things that would make this day good or exciting? And then at the end of the day, you ask like, what are the 3 best things that happened? And like, what are 3 things that you learned? And so I like, it's short and sweet. And it's just like, it's not numbered or anything. So I think even if you fall off of it, you can still pick it up and it's still waiting for you. So I like that one, but I'm sure there are plenty. I'm sure there are absolutely a plethora of journals out there.
I am not a writer in that every time I get some kind of journal, diary, anything, I don't keep up with it. And which is silly because I know the benefits of it as a psychologist, of the benefits of sitting down and writing and reflecting, but I just can't keep it. So for me, it's more about the conversation habit. That's what keeps me, or even the time to reflect. So there are a lot of apps like Stop, Breathe, Think, or Headspace, where you can select a gratitude meditation. And so I fall more along those lines. I tend to, unfortunately, not be able to stick with a journal by the end of the day, but I do like to pause and either talk about it with others or do a self-reflection when I'm falling asleep. So that's where I lean towards.
I love those too.
Yeah, I too I think I've tried 1 or 2 journals that were gifted to me, and the prompts are not as open as the one that you mentioned, Anna, so that one sounds great. And I couldn't really follow them. I like a free flow journal. Mine are all blank. And I, for years, was just journaling. I have a library of my own previous journals. Every morning I pick one out, figure out what past Erika's messages for me that day. And I just started getting into this date first. So that's something that could be helpful is, well, it's such a beautiful inverse relationship. You could start listing things you're grateful for and then wind up feeling gratitude, or you could get yourself into that state of thinking about what I'm grateful for and then expanding on why. And those often sent me on the journal brigades. Nowadays, I am less on the journal. I think that chapter is over, but for me, maybe. And I love my voice memos. We all have an iPhone. And I will literally, when inspired, start going through all the amazing things in my life. Some will be current and some will be like, I live where, I have what private chef, because I'll start going into my future too. And I'll just be like, damn, I feel empowered. And then that's helpful for me to listen to afterward as well. So, but I do also, I use the Calm app. I like the Headspace Netflix series. I think
Yes.
it's very easy for people to get because it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
The most simple meditations. I'm a medi girl. I like a good medi, and so I like those too. Yeah, I wish I had more journals, but I don't.
Yeah. I think the takeaway is you can do anything, and there are a lot of free
Yes.
resources on the
There's
internet.
no right or wrong way to practice, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Well, yeah, I think we could probably answer one more question before we wrap up. Let's see. Jackie has a really cute one at the bottom. It says, "What are you each grateful for today?" We can model it real quick for the folks.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Let's see.
Well, I can start because
Oh, is that the one we're answering? I didn't get that memo.
I was reflecting. So I have a little daughter that turns 3 next week. And I am grateful because she doesn't know this, it's going to be a surprise, but I have 14 family members coming in from out of town for her birthday.
Wow.
And even though she's 3, she is obsessed with her family, which I love. She always talks about her cousins that live on the plane because in her head, they get on the plane and they're gone. So she's going to be very happy, and I'm super grateful to my family because they all planned it on their own. They surprised me one day by letting me know they were all coming.
Love it. So good. Trying to think of what I'm grateful for. I think I'm ironically today, not unrelated to the panel, I've been really grateful that I took personal development seriously. I know it's wild, but I look at my habits and something very contrasting to what I desire happened earlier today. And I had the cry, and there was a path that I just thought was going one way and it went a different direction. And then it was just so incredibly apparent that I was crying, but I knew that it didn't mean anything. It wasn't doomsday because of how seriously I've taken the habit of erring on the side of optimism, cultivating your state of being, choice, stuff like that. And I experienced that earlier today and was just in a whole different space, probably minutes later. And yeah, I was really grateful that I didn't just watch the positive YouTube video and be like, oh yeah, that might help some people. But then I said, that could help me. And I wrote it down and I took it seriously and I did the practice like we've been talking about the gym. I applied it to the mental health part. Did we lose Anna?
It seems like we did.
Maybe we should close out our own panel. We can.
Popped off.
Amen.
Here she comes.
Okay. Like, see it.
But let's see. I could see that the battery on my laptop was getting slow, and so with 1 minute to go, it was dead. But yeah, I think
like you said, like I'm very grateful for my family, and it's awesome that you were able to mention an idea of how you experienced a hardship today, and it's the practice of gratitude that allowed you to reset. And I think I have a similar thing that happened today. I had like an artistic project that I was working on, and it kind of fell through, but I'm grateful that I just enjoy, painting, and I enjoy doing the activities that I have. So even though it fell through, it doesn't feel like I've really lost anything. It doesn't feel like, the joy of it was doing it. So
Yeah.
I love
I
that.
truly do the things that I love because I like to do them, not necessarily for any kind of outcome. So yeah.
Amazing.
Well, yeah, I guess if anybody has any closing remarks, thank you both so much for joining and for being flexible with my little technical hiccup here at the end. But it was lovely to get to talk to both of you, and I'm so grateful that everybody that's joined this webinar has been able to soak up some of the wisdom and from you two. It's been absolutely a treat.
Such a lovely conversation. Thank
Yes.
you. And thank you everyone on here. Thank you. That's so ironic. It's a gratitude.
Thanks for having us on.
Of course. All right. Well, have a good night, everyone. See you next time.
Night. Bye.